Commander Threxel's four eyes narrowed as he observed the human engineer through the observation deck's reinforced glass. Arya Ven moved through the ship's maintenance corridor with practiced efficiency, her tool belt clinking softly against her hip. But it wasn't her work that caught his attention. It was the 6 Kalrathi cubs, trailing behind her like a small, furry parade. This was the third cycle in a row. The Kalrathi were the galaxy's most feared warrior species. Their adults stood 3 meters tall, possessed retractable claws that could slice through durasteel, and had reflexes fast enough to snatch plasma bolts from the air. Their cubs, however, were different. Vulnerable. Precious. Kalrathi parents were notoriously protective, often refusing to let their young out of sight until they reached their 10th solar year. Yet here they were, 6 of them, ages ranging from what Threxel estimated to be 3 to 7 years old, following the human as if she were their pack leader. Security Officer Wren, Threxel, activated his comm. Report to Observation Deck 7. Immediately. Within moments, the four-armed Zenthari appeared, his mandibles clicking in acknowledgement. Commander, how long has this been occurring? Threxel gestured toward the viewport. Wren followed his gaze and released what could only be described as an amused chitter. The cubs following Engineer Ven? Approximately 2 weeks, Commander. Since the incident in Engineering Bay, 4. Explain. There was a plasma conduit breach. The cubs' parents were working the shift when the alarm sounded. Protocol dictates immediate evacuation. But the Kalrathi younglings were in the adjacent nursery area, the bulkhead sealed before the parents could reach them. Wren paused. Engineer Ven was the only one in the corridor. She went in. When? Treece in. Treece in. Threxel's scales rippled with surprise. The human entered a zone with active plasma fire? Those. Without hesitation, sir. Security footage shows she wrapped them in thermal blankets from an emergency locker, covered them with her own body, and held position until the suppression systems activated. She sustained second-degree burns across her back and arms. The commander watched as Arya knelt down, showing something on her datapad to the smallest cub. The youngster's ear tufts perked up with excitement, tiny claws pointing at the screen. The others crowded around, chirping in their high-pitched way. The Kalrathi parents must be grateful, Threxel observed. They offered her a blood debt, Commander, the highest honor in their culture. She refused it. Refused? Threxel turned sharply. Why? She said. And I quote, I didn't do anything special. They're kids. Of course I went in. End quote. For a long moment, Threxel said nothing. In his 70 years of military service across 100 worlds, he had learned that every species had its defining characteristic. The Zenthari valued order. The Vosh prized knowledge. The Kalrathi lived by honor. But humans? Humans were paradoxical. They were simultaneously the galaxy's most violent and most compassionate species. They would wage wars that lasted generations, yet weep over a single lost child. They created weapons that could crack planets, then turned around and risked everything to save those they'd never met. On the viewport, Arya stood and continued down the corridor. The cubs bounded after her, the smallest one grabbing onto her pant leg to keep up. She didn't shake him off. Instead, she slowed her pace, reaching down absently to pat his head, while she consulted her maintenance schedule. Have the parents expressed concern about their youngling's behavior? Threxel asked. The opposite, sir. They seem pleased. I've overheard them discussing it in the commissary. They call her Cub Guard Ven now. It's apparently a title of great respect. Threxel pulled up Arya Ven's service record on his wrist console. 28 Earth years old. Mechanical engineer. 3rd class. Exemplary work performance. No family listed, no mate, no offspring of her own. Does she know why they follow her? He asked quietly. I asked her once. Wren replied. She laughed and said cubs are cubs, no matter the species. said it reminded her of her neighbor's kids back on Earth. Always underfoot, always curious, always needing someone to care. Down in the corridor, Arya had stopped at a maintenance panel. The cubs sat in a neat row, watching with rapt attention as she explained something, her hands moving expressively. One of the older cubs asked a question, based on the tilting of its head. Arya smiled, pulled a spare hydrospanner from her belt, and let the cub hold it while she demonstrated on the panel. Teaching them. She was teaching them. "Commander," Ren ventured. "If I may speak freely?" "Proceed." "When we assembled this joint species crew, there were concerns. The Galactic Council predicted conflicts, territorial disputes, cultural misunderstandings, but ever since the incident, morale has increased 37%. Other species' younglings have started congregating in common areas. The Vosh meditation gardens, the Zenthari training halls. Parents are less anxious, more productive. Because of one human engineer? Because she showed them something, sir. The Kalrathi are warriors. Their entire culture revolves around strength and honor in combat, but she showed them that true strength isn't just about who you can defeat. It's about who you're willing to protect." Ren's mandibles clicked softly. The other species noticed. They're watching her, learning from her. Threxel watched as Arya finished her work and sealed the maintenance panel. The cubs chirped excitedly, and she reached into her pocket, producing 6 small wrapped candies that she distributed equally. "Human candy," Threxel noted. She must have purchased it with her personal credits during the last station resupply. The smallest cub hugged her leg before scampering off with his prize. The others followed suit, each offering their species' gesture of affection before bounding away down the corridor. Arya watched them go, that same soft smile on her face, before gathering her tools and heading toward the next maintenance checkpoint. Alone now, she moved differently, slower. Threxel noticed the slight hitch in her movement, the careful way she held her left arm. The burns, he realized. Still healing. "Update her service record," Threxel said suddenly. "Promote her to second-class engineer, effective immediately, and assign her quarters in Section 7. "Sir, Section 7 is officer territory. The Kalrathi family units are in Section 7. If those cubs are going to follow her, she might as well be close enough that their parents don't worry." He paused, his scales shifting through several colors, before settling on a deep, contemplative blue. "And Ren? Add a commendation. For actions demonstrating the highest ideals of interspecies cooperation and selfless valor." "Yes, Commander." As Ren left, Threxel remained at the viewport, watching the empty corridor where Arya Ven had been. The humans had a saying, he'd learned. Something about actions speaking louder than words. He understood now why they follow her, he thought. Because in a galaxy full of warriors and scholars and survivors, sometimes what everyone needs most is someone who simply cares. And humans, for all their contradictions, cared with a ferocity that could shame suns.